Hey y'all, it's Marianne with Life Meets Manuscript, and today we're going to talk about why midlife is a good time to become a first-time author. So, how do you become a first-time author in midlife? I'm going to show you and tell you how. Now, if you've seen the other videos, you know that there's all kinds of myths about starting over or starting new at this point in our lives. And when I talk about midlife, I'm talking about over 40. So you can look at those other videos to learn more about what those misconceptions are and how I busted them wide open with the truth. Now, you may be thinking, all right, so how can I get started? Many of you know that I have several novels already by a major publisher, and some I published on my own. And I started publishing since I was 25. But I took a started publishing books since I was 25. And I took a break and started over again. So I would say that I was and am a different writer than I was 20 years ago. So if you're starting out for the first time, you may be wondering, well, I've never written. How do I publish a book now? I have responsibilities. I have a job. I don't have time. I have so much I want to say, but I have, I can't focus. I can't think. And I'm going to tell you, I understand. I understand. And I'm going to give you three ways, three tips that you can use. You can use all of them or pick one of them. And I'm hoping that as I say these, that you're like, okay, did that, did that, did that. That way you know what your next step is. And if you've done all of these, then your next step is to, I'll tell you at the end. So now the first step is to start a journal. You want to be documenting what you want to write about. So I'm just going to keep it simple. So let's say you're writing a memoir. You want to document your thoughts, your ideas, etc. Even if you're writing fiction, that type of documentation can be informing for yourself, for the characters you create, for scenes, scenarios. So look at your journal as a sort of Home Depot where you can put all of your experiences, all of your ideas of day to day life, and then see what you can build from them. The second thing is start reading. Now, I'm a big reader who doesn't read as much as she should. And I read several books a year, but I'd love to read more books. Now, why I like reading as a writer is that I get to see how other writers write, and it also informs my own writing. It makes me a better writer. And then I can also, how can I say, get ideas for different ways of describing things. Because if you've been writing long enough, you have thought of all the million ways to describe a smile. So you probably run out of ideas. Reading helps to keep those things fresh, those descriptions fresh. And as a reader, I think it's important um, to well, I should say this. As an author, it's important to connect to the reader and have that experience that a reader is having with your book. And I think I read this quote somewhere that said, you know, there are books that authors read, and there are books written for authors. And I may be screwing up the whole quote, but what I'm saying is, as authors, there are books written just for us, whether it's something personal, but books that we're drawn to for a certain reason that have nothing to do with our work, but inform our lives in some way that helps us grow and develop in any area. And the last and final thing is write a short story. So when I was starting, when my first book was a series of short stories. It was called Sex and a Single Sister, five novellas. That was my first book. And it's very rare to publish short stories as a first book. However, those stories had a theme. And why I say you should start with writing a short story because short stories are one of the hardest things to write. And they're also a great way to see where your challenges are. And they also can emerge into a novel, which was my second book. I wrote a novel after one of my short stories. So writing a short story also gives you a start and an end. It also gives you a middle. And it forces you to explain things in a way that's quick, in a way that's page turning, attention grabbing. And it also trains you to come up with a good ending, meaning that the reader needs to walk away with some type of closure with a short story. There are some that keep it open if they're gonna, write more about the story or do a series or a novel. However, if you focus on writing a short story, let's say of 5,000 words, maybe even 1,500 words, you may have a book from that. You may say, well, it's over. I created this ending, but what happens after? Because, like I said in this video or in other videos, writing never ends. It's not math. It doesn't have a beginning or an end. It keeps going. It can be improved over and over and over. So I think that these three tips, not that I think, I know. That's why I tripped up because I know that I know that I know. Because I've been doing this for almost 30 years now, if not over 30 years. And I, it's really a long haul journey as a writer. And you have to get started at some point. And I'm not even talking about writing at that point. I'm talking about being published and an author. So to get there, you have to start somewhere. So these are the three tips. Start a journal, start reading, and start writing that short story. And I'd love to hear what you think about this video. And also, if you're over 40, I'm 50. So I know some of the challenges when it comes to this stuff, especially when it comes to our brains and how, yeah, I feel my brain's just a little bit different than it was when I was 25. So I'd like to hear from you. So thanks again. And I'm hoping that these tips help you and many more to come. Bye bye.